Okay,
Hey, how are you, Ian?
good. Thank you. How are you?
Can't complain.
Good. Move this up slightly.
I figured I'd do the call outside today since LA has some ridiculously nice weather.
You're just rubbing it in. It was snowing here at the weekend, so
I
it's
saw
yeah.
what is happening on the
I
East
don't
Coast.
know.
It's almost May.
World is coming to an end.
I, but yeah, so how's Boston? How long have you been in Boston?
I've been in Boston since the very end of 2007, beginning 2008.
Awesome.
So, for yeah, 12 years or so. So it was only meant to be for a year, but that's the way things go.
Yeah, definitely. I've been all over. I'm originally from Boston, actually.
Oh, nice.
Um, yeah, so a ton of family still there. Somehow ended up on the West Coast, which can't
Yeah.
complain per the weather
No.
you see behind me.
Yeah, I know. I'm envious.
Uh, so yeah, let's wait for maybe another minute or two to let some more
Sure.
folks join, and then we'll dive into some questions. I'll kind of intro why we're doing this from the startup perspective, and then we can go from there.
Excellent.
Yeah, but in the meantime, so how has work been going? Has it been crazy? I'm assuming for you.
It has, yeah, but in a good way.
Yeah.
It's been quite a whirlwind, so we can't complain. And unlike the vast majority of people who are stuck inside, I at least have some variety in my day-to-day life. So
Oh yeah.
that's good. Yeah, I get to be out and about.
Well,
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah, I definitely am getting sick of being stuck inside, hence why I wanted to do this call outside. And
And are you
fortunately,
6 feet
yeah.
away from everyone else?
Yeah, there's no one around. My
Perfect.
neighborhood in Los Angeles is pretty sparse,
Oh,
especially in the middle
nice,
of the day.
nice.
Yeah, which is good. Definitely adhering to all the restrictions as much as possible.
Yeah, it can be tough at times, but yeah, you do the best you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Cool. So I think we should just go ahead and get started out of
sure.
the interest of time, and then if more folks will join, then we'll get to it. But before we do the deep dive, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Patrick Driscoll. I am the Education Program Manager of 500 Startups, which is a kind of an international accelerator and ecosystem builder. And also I chair the board for Los Angeles's chapter of StartOut, which for those that are joining the call, if you don't already know, is an amazing resource for LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs. And it's a great way to connect with other founders, other entrepreneurs, investors, mentors. And if you're interested, check out startout.org to be added to kind of our membership base and to get involved.
Awesome.
We're doing these. Before I intro you, I'll do a quick kind of explanation about why we're doing this. We want to highlight some of the leaders from our community who are helping to fight the current pandemic crisis. And we created this series, they're all broadcasted Wednesdays and Fridays, about 2 weeks ago, or maybe even 3 weeks ago at this point. And they've been quite successful in bringing to light a lot of these amazing innovators and folks that were able to pivot quickly to help fight the pandemic. And that's kind of where I'd like to transition and intro Iain MacLeod. He has agreed to speak with me a little bit more about what he's doing with Aldatu Bio and how he was able to kind of transition his business model to help with the fight against Corona or in COVID-19. And I'll let him kind of intro his background and a little bit more about him and the origin story of how Aldatu Bio came to light. So with that, I'd like to pass it off to you to kind of introduce yourself much better than I could, and we'll go from there.
Well, thank you, Patrick, for having me on my first ever Instagram Live. So this is an experience. Yes, as Patrick said, I'm Iain MacLeod. I'm one of the co-founders and I'm the Chief Science Officer at Aldatu Biosciences. So we're a diagnostic company, um, and we were founded in 2014 with the initial aim to develop rapid, affordable diagnostics for HIV drug resistance testing.
Awesome.
So I'm a virologist by training, and I moved to the US from Scotland almost 12 years ago and was working at the Harvard School of Public Health on HIV drug resistance, primarily in Botswana. Botswana is a middle income country, has a lot of resources to support the treatment of people in the country with HIV. But one of the issues I noticed, and I spent a lot of time working there, was that people had access to antiretroviral drugs, but they didn't have access to the diagnostics to let them know if they were on the right drugs. So much like antibiotic resistance, which we hear about all the time, HIV can develop drug resistance to antiretrovirals.
Right.
So without these diagnostics, patients can't be on effective treatment. So long story short, I ended up developing this technology called PANDA. And what PANDA does is really address that question of making diagnostics more rapid for resource-limited countries. So I think most people are aware that HIV is a very rapidly evolving, fast mutating virus. And that makes it a bit of a moving target for sensitive diagnostics, because diagnostics usually look for very specific parts of a virus genome. And with HIV, it's always changing. So
Right.
that made HIV drug resistance diagnostics very challenging. So they're available in the US and Europe, but they were costing $600 at a time. And when treatment in sub-Saharan Africa is $125 per person per year, there's no incentive to really give people a resistance test. So we really wanted to open up that possibility. So what the PANDA technology does that we have at Aldatu is correct for all the mutations in HIV or viruses in generally, so that these false negative results don't happen, because if the virus is always changing and diagnostics can't detect it, you get a very high false negative rate. So that's essentially what our technology does. And like I said, it was started at the Harvard School of Public Health. And I'll be honest, co-founding a startup wasn't in my 5-year plan, 10-year plan. I was very much going to stay in academia.
An accidental founder, yeah.
Yeah, the next thing you know, here I am. But the Harvard Office of Technology Transfer, because I wanted to get a patent for this, because I wanted to make sure that, someone just couldn't take the technology, which was meant to enable affordable diagnostics, and then sell it at a premium. So they asked me what my commercialization plan was, and I was like, I don't know what a commercialization plan is. And they sent me off to this boot camp on how to commercialize your life sciences technology at the Harvard Innovation Lab. Very overwhelming. I found out what an angel investor was, what a VC was, where to incorporate my company, not the hand-holding I needed.
Yeah, steep learning curve.
Yes, it was a lot to take in. But when I was there, I met a guy who was finishing his PhD in genetics, David, who's now my co-founder, and we got talking at a bus stop. And, he's like, why did you go to the boot camp? And I was like, oh, I'm just this nerd with the technology and I don't know what to do with it. And he said he was very interested in the business side of biotech, which is not where my head was at all. So we kind of mulled it over. And we thought, we'll do some business plan competitions. We'll join a couple of mentorship programs, dip our toes in the water, see what it's like.
Right.
So that was early 2014 when we founded the company. Then all of a sudden, the National Institutes of Health put out a call looking to fund a simple, inexpensive, rapid HIV drug resistance test. And we were like, oh, that's kind of what we have.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So we threw our hat into the ring. Like 18 months later, middle of 2015, we were operational. And that's has been we've been operational for almost 5 years now. And we're almost exclusively funded by the National Institutes of Health. So to date, we've raised about $10 million in grants and contracts for them to fund this work. Yeah.
So now with that kind of history and context, what really led you to pivot kind of to focus on the COVID crisis? Was it more of just the strong need for more testing, or what kind of led that charge, and how did you do it?
So I think what really got us thinking was when there was the news of the CDC having a lot of issues with the manufacturing and the quality of their testing. So I think this was around about the middle of February. It was coming to light that there was going to be a huge gap in meeting the testing needs in the US. And it was clear that a lot of big biotech companies were making moves to do COVID-19 diagnostics as well.
Yeah.
But we saw it as, the perfect opportunity to challenge the entire team. We're in a pandemic situation. What's the quickest we can, pivot the company design the technology, validate it, and get it out there. So
Sure.
really, to begin with, it was like, can we pull this off? Almost for fun in a way, in a kind of nerdy kind of way.
Ch-
Let's push it. Yeah, we're in
Challenge
a
yourself. Yeah.
we're in a place where we've got a great team that has developed a lot of experience in these rapid diagnostics. Can we do it? And as about a week into having decided we would do it, a colleague from the Harvard School of Public Health, who is also an infectious disease physician at the Beth Israel Hospital, reached out and he's I'd say almost maybe in a joking way, he was like, "Hey, do you guys happen to have a COVID-19 test?" And I was like, "As a matter of fact, we do." And he let it be known that, so at this point, this was the first week of March, and that they had placed orders with the big biotech companies, but those can be delivered until the end of March.
Okay.
So there was this huge gap that had to be filled as quickly as possible because there were people who were in isolation wards who may be positive, maybe negative. There were healthcare workers who were having to isolate. A lot of healthcare resources were just being consumed by not knowing if someone was positive or negative. Um, and so we were like, okay, if you guys are willing to take a chance on us, we would love to come into the hospital, into the CLIA lab, their certified clinical lab, and give it a go. Um, and so we went in there on the Saturday, I think this was the 14th of March, so approximately 2 weeks after we decided to partose in that particular type of water.
Wow.
And within 72 hours, they were testing their first 170 samples. And within a week, they tested 2,000.
That's
Um,
fantastic.
yeah, it just took this trajectory that we would never would have imagined, and was phenomenal and overwhelming and gratifying and exhausting and
Well,
all of
I
those.
I know that you kind of had to learn the entrepreneurship piece after figuring out the tech, but it sounds like you had some great entrepreneurship instincts there in order to pivot to help the COVID. Well, altruistic and also entrepreneurial. So what is it like pivoting so quickly in the medical technology field? I know med is always difficult to get momentum, especially at kind of a bureaucratic NIH level. So was it easier for you as kind of a smaller business to pivot as opposed to these large either producers of medical technology? So what gave you the advantage in this situation?
Um, I think being only wanting to focus locally to begin with was what
Sure.
enabled us to pivot quickly. The big companies are looking to meet demands all over the country or perhaps even globally. And, that's why there's a delay in getting the kits out to those who really need them. Whereas we just wanted to focus in the greater Boston area. Because our diagnostics, we focus so long in resource-limited countries and sub-Saharan Africa. It's like, this is an opportunity that we never expected to try it out on home turf, and really put it to use and work very, very closely with the healthcare providers in Boston. So I think being so small and nimble and, literally working hand in hand with these people at the hospital, allowed us to get them access to COVID-19 tests 2 weeks before they would have got it otherwise. And from kind of regulatory standpoint, the FDA have been phenomenal. Again, because we work mostly outside of the US, we haven't really had any interactions at all with the FDA. But they're so keen to promote, but in a high quality way, COVID-19 diagnostics. So they've been a great resource in guiding us in the right direction.
Fantastic. That's good to hear. And so now that you have this kind of model and you've launched in Boston, do you have any plans to grow, to scale, to produce these even more so? I know no one quite understands what the timeline is going to be. So what would be your plan going forward with these testing kits?
So we're starting to focus a lot more back in the areas we maybe know a little better in Africa. And
Fantastic.
those are kind of, I'd say, unfortunately, like a lot of epidemics and pandemics, kind of neglected or left to the last minute. So we've shipped kits to Botswana, who have validated it and are now up and running with clinical samples. We just shipped to Senegal, and we're looking to ship to Nigeria. And one of the bottlenecks there is actually getting flights to those countries with cargo to get it into the country in the first place.
Yeah, it's
Um,
complicated.
yeah, South Africa shut down their entire airspace, and that's one of the main hubs to get to sub-Saharan Africa. So navigating that is being a little bit tricky, but I think those are the countries we know best, and I think those are going to be the countries with the greatest needs. I mean, there's obviously a huge need here as well, but I think for the most part it's been adequately met. Whereas, Africa is just, yeah, it's not being paid very close attention to.
Yeah, oftentimes overlooked.
Yeah.
So in terms of the supply chain of the product, are you using the same production providers from the HIV kits, and then you're getting them to the same distribution centers in Africa, for example, and in Boston?
Yeah.
Have you had to ship that in any sort of way? Where is production happening and going?
So we assemble the kits themselves here in our facility, but we do get a lot of the components from third-party manufacturers. We get our detection reagents from one manufacturer, they get the buffer that the reaction is run in another and so on and so forth. And they've been fantastic. They're themselves are huge biotech firms, global firms, who've been working with for 5 years now. And we were a little bit apprehensive because we're a very small company. We're not going to make up very much of the revenue at all. But the amount of attention and dedication they have given to us has been astounding. We haven't had any
Fantastic.
supply issues at all. And we know that they are being pulled in all sorts of directions by all sorts of major companies, but they're still paying attention to us, which is, nothing short of phenomenal.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of counterintuitive from what a lot of folks are hearing about lack
Yes.
of material.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's hopeful. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. So
Um,
the testing kits are there. The problem is now processing the samples.
I
So
see.
yeah. So there's always seems to be one piece of the puzzle that's out of sync with the rest. So it
Got it.
was getting the swabs, and then it was getting the samples extracted, and it's always something.
Yeah, and I can imagine that process in sub-Saharan Africa as well. Must be
Exactly.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what about the future? Now that you've kind of diversified, whether you wanted to or not, what do you think you're going to do in maybe the next 3 years? I know we can kind of expect another COVID outbreak. Hopefully not, but you never know, in the
Yeah.
winter or maybe next year before a vaccine is created, or herd immunity, or whatever the current buzzword is.
Yeah.
So what is your plan going forward?
I'm not a huge fan of 5-year plans because I honestly thought I'd stay in academia the rest of my life. So I know that my 5-year plans don't usually pan out the way that I intend them to.
Fair enough.
Um, and if you told me a couple of months ago that, hey, you're going to be focusing on a global pandemic and working with local Boston hospitals, and Boston and Massachusetts is going to be your stomping ground for a while, I wouldn't have believed you. Um, I think we're really just focused and trying to help with the pandemic as much as possible. We are back now to working on our HIV diagnostics and the other diagnostics that we do for viral hemorrhagic fevers. So that's kind of ramped back up again. And for the future, I mean, hopefully this will be the last pandemic of this proportion for a while, but there's always something. We had Zika before, every couple of years there's something coming around. And now
Yeah.
that we know we have the ability to pivot, ramp up, manufacture, and validate so quickly, I guess from, again, a nerdy standpoint, we kind of look forward to the next challenge.
Excellent. And now for kind of the final question, what advice would you give to smaller, either medically focused tech companies if they were interested in getting involved in fighting the pandemic? I think they have kind of a unique positioning where they are able to pivot a lot more quickly than other large groups. So what advice would you give to someone in your shoes?
Probably just dive right in. Even if there are bigger, more profitable, more impactful companies out there, even as a small company, you'll be able to have a huge impact even locally. So yeah, just get started. We decided to just go for it to see what would happen, and we have no regrets.
Fantastic. That is an amazing story, and I'm so happy that we got to chat about it.
Thank you.
And that's about all the time we have. But I wanted to say thank you to the StartOut community for checking out this video. We are going to post it later for people to watch on our YouTube channel and a few other social media locations. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Again, my name is Patrick Driscoll, and I'm with Iain MacLeod. And any final words, thoughts, pieces of wisdom going forward for entrepreneurs who might be watching this?
Oh, stay sane, stay safe. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Iain, and you
Thank you,
have a good
Patrick.
rest of your day.
You
And
too. Enjoy the
yeah,
sunshine.
I will enjoy the hopefully warming weather in Boston.
Here's hoping. Thank
Yeah,
you, Patrick.
sure. Have a good one.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.